fear through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and so jig over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still have me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Disciples of Ed here on the Always Next to Your podcast. I'm your host, Rob. We got a full house on hand today. Today I'm joined by my regular co-host, Steve. Steve, how's it going?
Not too bad. How you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Flyers hockey right around the corner. We're also joined by occasional guest on the show, Shane. Shane, how's it going?
What's going on, Rob? Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, of course. And also by one of our new writers making his podcasting debut, Joe. Joe, how's it going today?
Good, Rob. How about you? Thanks for having me on for the first time.
Thanks for coming on. All right, so we got some things that we want to get to. The Flyers season right around the corner. A bunch of things that we want to talk about, including the Nolan Patrick news that came out today. But first off, I just want to remind everybody, go on Skype. I'm sorry, not Skype. That's what we're using right now. Go on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Hit that subscribe button. If you're on iTunes, give us a rating. Give us a review. Also on social media, you can find us at Twitter at ANYP Podcast. You can find our personals. I am at radio_Rob. Shane, where can they find you?
You guys can get me at Shane_Meade.
Steve?
Schmitty324.
And Joe, where can we find you on Twitter?
JJ Borek 26. JJ Borek 26, excuse me.
All right, so that's where you can find all of us on social media. Please give us a follow. Once again, subscribe, rate, and review. We really appreciate all the constructive criticism that we can get from you guys. It really helps us make this podcast as good as it can possibly be. So let's get down to it. Flyers hockey right around the corner. We've got some. We've had a chance to see this team in preseason action a few games now. What are your guys' keys to the season? We're going to talk about who do you think needs to step up? How much of a difference will the new coaching staff make? Who's primed for a breakout season? Anybody you think that might regress a little bit from last year? Joe, we'll start with you. What is your keys to the season for this upcoming Flyer season?
Well, I would say one of my main keys to a season in Alain Vigneault's system is also your backup goaltender, because everything I've been reading about Alain Vigneault is because of the high aggressive intensity he plays at. We generate a lot of shots against, but that's what good goaltenders like Carter Hart like, to really get into the groove of the game. But with what we have seen so far from Brian Elliott in the preseason, that could bring a bit of a cause for concern going into the regular season. Since you have a 21-year-old netminder, you're obviously going to want to limit his exposure right away. So, I mean, that would be a key for me. And then the other is obviously guys like G. Alain Vigneault talked about people underachieving last year. A big one would be Jake Voracek. I think him and Giroux are going to really step up this year. I see G going back to scoring around 30 goals compared to the only 22 last year. And then Jake going back from like the mid-60s in points up to like 80. So getting contribution from the guys Alain Vigneault said underperformed is going to be key for this team as well.
So you've really got high expectations for the two guys who have kind of been the main cogs of the offense over the past 5 or 10 years or so in G and Jake.
Yeah, especially because Jake, if depending what you want to do after this year, you want him to have a great year, one for the success of your team this season, and two for the trade market potentially next offseason if you want to move the contract off of your books.
Very well. Shane, how much do you think the coaching staff, the change in the coaching staff now with AV, is going to make a difference for the Flyers this upcoming season?
That's huge. I mean, going from a system with Hackstall where there was absolutely no life or energy. I mean, you were down there 2 years ago covering the team. There was never anything there. You know, everything was so tight-lipped and just, like I said, non-energetic.
Lying stairs every night, man.
Every single night. You know, so now you get the opportunity, and we saw it last night in Behind the Glass for all those listeners who watched that last night. It was a good 30 minutes. There's a lot of energy, man. There's life again in that locker room and on the ice, and that to me is going to be the biggest thing. You got to have fun when you're playing these games. You got to be okay going into work every single day and not just stare at a freaking statue, man. Dave Haxtell was a damn joke. Alain Vigneault, for better or worse, the guy's got a hell of a lot of personality, and man, that's something that's going to be really, really big. And we've seen it and we've read it so far this offseason that the energy of the locker room is much improved. So I don't think that these changes are going to we're going to see the positive effects of it immediately. I think we're going to come out the gate kind of slow. But I think once these systems are implemented by the entire new coaching staff between Alain Vigneault, Yao, and Michel Therrien, you're going to start to see these things click, 15, 20, 25 games in. And I think you could be looking at a really dangerous team this year.
Yeah, we've certainly seen the personality from AV so far, as you mentioned, that video clip, and also the clip of him giving Brian Elliott some shit after the overtime preseason loss up in Boston. We'll talk about that a little bit more coming up, but that was a pretty hilarious clip right there.
100%. Yeah, I dig him, and that goes along with what Joe was talking about earlier in terms of the way that he's going to have to lean on a backup goaltender here too, and you can't win with that. It's shit. I'm like, yeah, it's 100% shit. We've been watching it for 2 years, so I dig the comment. I like the fire.
Yeah, I'm certainly in agreement that it's going to be a lot different for Flyers fans. Watching the post-game pressers after every game, we're going to get emotional answers. We're going to get honest answers. We're not just going to get Dave Haxtell's blank stare into the camera and his monotone voice blurting out answers that he probably had prepared about 3 months before the game. So that'll be refreshing for Flyers fans. So, Steve, we'll get to you. Who do you have being primed for a breakout season this year, and who do you think might regress a little bit?
Breakout? Does Carter Hart count?
Absolutely, he does.
All right, so I got a twofer then. Carter Hart obviously is going to make that name for himself as one of the upper echelon starters in the league. I think he'll really fare well this season. I'm probably buying in a little bit too much given it's his first full season starting. But I really do think that he's going to do well and take this number one job to Hart and do well with it. Second, I got Oscar Lindblom.
He's going to take it to heart. Was that pun intended there?
Absolutely.
He's drunk. Of course it's intended.
Not drunk yet. Oscar Lindblom is like my second 1B here because I think he'll get more steady minutes, more steady line mates, and build chemistry. He's not going to get benched. He's going to continue producing. I think he'll see some power play time. I can't speak on Skype. He's going to get some power play time. And I think he's just going to mesh really well in Vigneault's system and then how Therrien plays, I guess, on the power play. And then I think you could see him seeing some penalty kill minutes as well.
You think he's a second line or third line forward going into the season?
I think he's going to alternate.
I think he starts off on the third line, personally.
Yeah, I think he eventually gets moved up because I'm sure some shuffling will go around with the lines, but he's going to get his minutes either way. I think he'll probably average 16 minutes a night, maybe 15 at least, which will be good for him. I'm not exactly sure how much he had last year. But for regress, not 100% sure. Maybe Kevin Hayes. Not really.
That's probably the most surefire answer there.
He doesn't get 55 points.
Because the team is so young. Maybe we see a little bit of regression from Giroux, but Kevin Hayes is probably the better bet.
Yeah, but in a serious note, I would probably say Sanheim probably won't get 35 points, but he'll increase his defensive just play in general.
Yeah, maybe in terms of the points, he doesn't quite reach that, but he's going to continue to improve in all aspects of the game because he's such a young player. He has so much talent and such a high ceiling that maybe statistically he regresses a little bit, but in terms of the actual product on the ice, he's going to continue to improve.
That's exactly what I was going for. Thank you.
All right, so getting back to Alain Vigneault chirping Brian Elliott after the overtime loss in Boston the other night, It was pretty funny. I think he made some comment along the lines of, "We're not going to win games with goaltending like that," and pretty much taking a direct shot at Brian Elliott as Elliott walked past him into the locker room. Steve, we'll start off with you this time. What is your thoughts on that comment there?
It was funny, and it is true. I didn't realize he said it as he was walking by, which makes it funnier.
I think he did. I kind of saw the clip in passing.
Yeah, because I didn't see it. I didn't even hear it until you mentioned it. But it is true. I mean, what I read, I wasn't able to watch the game, but what I read was that it was 2 weak goals against him. And yeah, usually when there's 2 weak goals against you, usually it's at the very deflating moments. So yeah, you're not going to win with goaltending like that. So it's true.
Yeah, Shane, you mentioned that you enjoy the honesty of AV and basically coming out and making comments like that, as opposed to the silence of Dave Haxtell and really not addressing it at all.
Yeah, in Philadelphia, I think more so than most markets, we can tell when you're disingenuous, and when you're disingenuous, it's an immediate turnoff. If we watch this product night in and night out, not everyone's an educated fan, but there are a lot of educated fans out here in Philadelphia. If we see that it's shit,
educated fan base.
I don't know. Have you seen Twitter? These guys are fucking idiots.
Yeah, but I thought we had one of the most educated, and then Twitter happened.
And then Twitter.
Yeah, I agree.
So
fucking Twitter.
But yeah, it's a terrible, miserable place, black hole of an existence. But
can't leave it.
Yeah, you can't. And by the way, if you are interacting with us on Twitter, we fucking love you guys. But the disingenuous nature of a coach here in this city, we see it with Gabe Kapler. There's that disconnect that we feel, and we're like, don't lie to me right now. Don't tell me that you're seeing all these positive things and these underlying statistics that are coming out. And I'm a big analytics guy across the board for sports. I believe in that next wave of information in sports and how they make these games better. But I can tell. Don't lie to me and tell me that these guys are good and things are turning the corner. It's disingenuous is the best word that I can use for it. AV's not that guy. If they come out and they play like shit, he's going to be the guy that comes out in the presser, and he's not saying it under his breath anymore. He's going to say, you can't win with goaltending like that. It's shit. That's what he's going to say. Microphone, 40 reporters in front of him.
And I think that's part of the reason why they hired him here, honestly, because he's the kind of guy who can relate to the fan base like that. Haxtell was exactly what the fan base doesn't want, too quiet. And AV, he's much the same as, well, Doug Peterson's kind of the same way. When the team doesn't play well, he'll come out and say it in front of the media. He's not going to pull any punches. And that's only going to benefit AV during his time here in Philadelphia.
AV also 100% looks like, if I walk into any random corner bar in the city of Philadelphia, he's the homeless guy at the end, just chilling. He's got like the neckbeard thing going, like he hasn't actually shaved with a purpose. He's just like, I got an electric razor, but it's really dull, so it only takes me down this level. These shorts, they don't fit. I don't really care. I coach a hockey team, by the way. Like, that's what Alain Vigneault is, and that's what Philadelphia is. Like, we're a fucking wreck of human beings. So it's a perfect fit right now. I'm enjoying
AV's out here making a fashion statement for the city of Philadelphia.
Every interview I go into from now on, that's it. I'm going for the AV look right now.
Good luck.
Go for it, man. You might as well.
Appreciate you.
Oh, man. Joe, moving on to you. Do you think that AV's no bullshit style of holding his team accountable will rub off with the amount of young players that they have on the roster?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think it would be beneficial because if you look at the team he had previously with the Rangers, they had a mix of young and veteran talent, and he did well with that team for a period of time. And then the Canucks back in the past, where you want to make guys accountable, especially with younger talent, because you're seeing what's happening in Winnipeg right now with Patrick Laine, where something messed up with the organization. If you have good organizational chemistry and a very good organization throughout, you're not going to have that happen. So you want to hold guys accountable to make them the best they could be each year on the ice as well as off the ice. And I think that's going to rub off in terms of production and rub off in terms of having Giroux be the best leader we ever seen him be, and having other guys like JVR have their best seasons, because he's going to be in front of the net exactly where he's supposed to be and not moving around, shifting lines, and not finding chemistry like he did with a guy like Haxtell. So
Yeah, not just Line A up in Winnipeg, also Jacob Trouba wanting out and eventually moving on to the Rangers. That certainly played a role in it there. But yes, definitely the younger players should benefit from this. AV, he lays down the law in the locker room. There's not going to be any sort of disconnect where the players aren't all on the same page, because AV will go in there and make sure that they are.
He's also going to make you take onus. Like if a game like you were like a defenseman blew a game and he didn't make a play, he's not going to let you say to the media, oh, well, I thought if I did this, this, and this would – like he's not going to let you bullshit in the locker room. He's going to talk to you after you did something like that and make sure you're being, like Shane said, forthright and honest with the media and not BSing like Philadelphia hates. So he's going to –
How do you think these athletes take that? Because that's a different style. That is not what Hackstall did. I don't know that there was ever any real accountability anywhere there. He had his guys. The only people that seemed to ever sit there and take repercussion from him was TK in the third periods.
And Ghost.
And Sanheim.
Ghost too, sure.
Put Sanheim like on the third line for no reason.
For a while, yeah. And then once he finally got a shot, he never left. But how do you think that this locker room does react to a guy who I 100% think he's going to get in the face of players, whether there are cameras on him or not, and he's not going to give a shit, and he's going to treat these guys like men, which is how all sports should be. But we know how the media culture is in 2019. How do you think these players react to that?
Well, I think they're going to react really well, because I know in the interview on the NHL Network yesterday and a bunch of other stuff I watched, just like AV, Drew's been talking about how hungry he's been. He's been in the league for 13 years and realistically hasn't won much of anything yet. We got to some Eastern Conference Finals. We lost in the Stanley Cup, but he hasn't won much of anything along with Jake, who's been there. So I think when your veterans are very hungry, Kevin Hayes said this too in his breaking of the ice, it stems down. So when the veterans buy in and they don't care that you're getting in their face, they like that to keep them accountable. The younger guys automatically buy in. So as long as they buy in, and Hayes is going to, because he had him in New York, he already's talking about how he loves being back with Vigneault. It's going to stem throughout, and you're just going to see, like you said, probably one of the more productive seasons we've seen in recent years from the Flyers under Alain Vigneault and Terrien and Yo, who's hungry, especially coming off of getting fired by the damn Blues and then them going on to win the Stanley Cup. He's going to be a hungry assistant too. So.
And you mentioned Michel Terrien, and I got to think, if AV is not the one getting in the faces of the players in the locker room, it will be Michel Terrien. We all know about his run-in with Danny Briere up in Montreal. I forget the exact comment that he made to him, but Briere at that point was a veteran at the end of his career, and Terrien basically got in there and gave him shit for not playing up to his caliber. So if he's willing to do that to a veteran player, he's really going to get into some of these younger players when they're not reaching their full potential here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, I know on the show yesterday on the NHL Network, they even said, AV said about Chris Stewart, he's like, I think he played like shit last night. He's like, I think he was terrible last night. So, and then Terrien and Yo agreed. So they are completely forthright with Fletcher when they're in their meetings as well, because they showed a glimpse into the Flyers meeting. So that's very helpful as compared to Dave Hackstall, which likely beat around the bush a lot more in those respective meetings with a Ron Hextall.
Sorry, I just looked up what Terrien said, and in Danny Briere's autobiography, he said, Michel Terrien showed Danny Briere video and said, no one in the room respects you. No one wants to play with you. It's fucked up. That's honestly fucked up.
It is kind of fucked up, but
yeah, it's a little extreme from like a.
Hey, at least he's being honest there.
I dig it. I respect him. I don't care.
Yeah, I like
honest,
it.
I think it's just flat out wrong. There's no way you don't respect Danny Briere in your locker room.
You do, but it's an hilarious comment. This is like how I teach kids and how I coach kids. I sit there and grab a 9-year-old. I'm like, I swear to God, no one gives a shit about your life. Start
so
crying.
You're like
build
Coach
character.
Kent. You're like Coach Kent, the YouTube guy.
Sure. Why not?
Oh man, that's gotta be fun for those kids.
There's a reason I don't coach anymore.
Oh man. So do you guys collectively, do you think that the accountability held by the coaching staff will start to rub off on the players in a way in which when the players themselves don't perform well, they'll come out and they'll be straight up honest with it about it with the media?
Who are we asking?
Wait, hold on. I missed the question.
All right.
I was reading more about that.
So I was asking I'll start off with you, Shane, since you were paying attention there. Do you think
Sorry.
that the accountability of the coaching staff and their forced accountability upon the players, do you think that we'll see more and more players coming out there in post-game interviews and being honest about, hey, I played like shit tonight, or hey, as a team, we looked terrible tonight? Do you think there's going to be more honesty towards the media from the players?
Of course. Teams and locker rooms reflect their leadership, and it starts at the top of the organization. Usually in hockey, we certainly see it reflect, at least starting with the head coach. They kind of adapt to the personality of whoever's leading that locker room or clubhouse. We see it with the Phillies and Gabe Kapler. They're basically just talking monkeys, and they say the same damn things that he does. When you have that willingness to hold players accountable as a coach and as a coaching staff and coach's room, and you encourage that from your leadership group, whoever has the C's and A's on your hockey squads, it doesn't really matter, or your veteran leaders who don't wear, letters, that's going to trickle down all the way down to the 13th forward and 7th defenseman, and the, goaltender in Temple who gets called up every once in a while. That accountability is something that's going to be mirrored no matter who you're speaking with within the Flyers organization. There's going to be some brute honesty that I don't think that we've seen, at least in the last 5 years. I would think back to the way that players responded to questions under Peter Laviolette in his first 2 years.
Yeah, and Laviolette was much the same way. He was a fiery guy. We saw it on the documentary leading up to the Winter Classic the one year. He had some pretty hilarious comments, but he was certainly a fiery guy. He would swear like every other word.
He literally punched a
locker
player
room
in the
speeches
helmet.
between periods. I'm sorry, what's that, Steve?
He punched a player in the helmet during
Right.
Yeah, I forgot about
Good
that.
old Laviolette, man. Oh, hey, there's a reason why he's won a Stanley Cup, and he's been to a couple others.
Yeah, I guess, but his time always wears out.
It does, but great coach while I was here. All right, so speaking of young players, Nolan Patrick, more injury concerns. It was announced today that he has a migraine disorder. He'll miss the opening start of the season. I think they said the opening week of the season.
Week to week, so they have
week
no
to week,
fucking
yeah.
idea.
He's week to week. Migraine disorder is just two fancier words for concussion, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
You are probably onto something there.
Yeah.
If he didn't block everything with his face, he'd be okay.
It also
You notice how they
Gabriel.
went from upper body injury to migraine disorder.
It is part of his upper body.
It
Yeah,
is.
You're not wrong
Oh,
about
is that
that.
what they said Curtis Gabriel has too?
Curtis
Gabriel's got a knee.
Oh yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, that was nasty, that injury.
Yeah, that was pretty nasty. I didn't watch. I wasn't able to watch that game, but I saw the highlight of that injury on the one video, and that was not good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not good.
Curtis-
His skate got caught up and his leg bent in a way that it was not supposed to bend. Not fun to watch.
Never
Yeah,
remorse.
AV said he had a good shot too in the thing on NHL Network yesterday too, especially with how Stewart was playing.
Of course, you can say that now.
Sucks for him as a player. Well, I would just, from what I've
Boost the
seen
confidence
too, he actually
fakely.
looked decent. Better than Chris Stewart. Chris Stewart's just looked like Zach Ronaldo basically. I'll fight anybody that comes in my path. Like,
Yeah. He's just trying to get a job.
yeah.
But fuck Curtis Gabriel, really. He's the one that fucking killed Nolan Patrick. What was it, last year, the other year? It doesn't
He
matter.
might be part of that concussion syndrome, whatever it is,
Yeah, migraine.
or
disorder.
migraine disorder.
So that shit does not go away, by the way. So I got hit by a 90-mile-an-hour fastball in 2008 in the ear ring of my helmet. 2 weeks later, I came back, got hit in the same damn place by like an 85-mile-an-hour fastball. This is now 12 years later, 11, 12 years later, and I still have to go for regular scans because my brain's so jacked up from just 2 hits. This guy's out there getting jacked up, 4 or 5 times his rookie year, same thing last year, head's constantly hitting hard on the ice. This shit, that doesn't go away.
And then the guy that concussed you once is brought into the locker room. Yeah, he's getting flashbacks.
That might be it, man. PTSD.
Might be. It seriously might be. I seem to remember another player who had a lot of talent here, but had way too many concussions during his career. Wore number 88, and we all know how that ended here.
At least we didn't trade the whole fucking team in the future for Nolan Patrick.
Nolan Patrick, yeah. That's
Yeah, we just rigged a lottery. That's all.
Yeah, pretty much. We rigged the lottery during
In one of the worst draft years ever.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, which is true. So if he does pan out, it's not like that was a great draft year, like you just said, Shane. So you still have time. It's only his third full season.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
honestly, Patrick probably only fell to 2 because of his injury issues in juniors.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah, had he not had that double hernia,
Yeah.
he very well may have been the number one, and we would have been looking at Nico Heershire, who I think is a bullshit hockey player to begin with.
I like Heischer.
I hate him.
Well, fuck you.
That's a totally reasonable response right there. It's all right, though. This is a Disciples of Ed. We're allowed to curse. We're allowed to drop F-bombs. We're allowed to call people out and basically be dicks on the show. So, by all means, go ahead.
Good. Steve, you're next.
All right, so addressing Nolan Patrick's, we already kind of went through his injury concerns, but Joe, I'll start off with you with this question here. Is this season the make or break for Nolan Patrick?
I think in the sense of knowing if he's a top 6 forward, it would be a make or break. Now, depending how long this migraine issue, like Shane says, this stuff lingers into the season, is going to affect how you can judge him. But if he comes back by a reasonable time, he should still be able to produce, especially if he's put back with Lindblom, who he gelled with really well last year. I mean, I predicted for him around 20 goals and 35 assists. That would get him to like 55 points and solidify him moving forward. Depending when he comes back, that might be difficult. And I predicted that more at a conservative end. But I think it would be a make or break for him being he comes back by mid-November. Otherwise, you don't have time to. It's a weird judgment. It's like a half-season judgment at that point.
Yeah, I could certainly see 20 goals being in the cards for him. I don't know about 35 assists. I think he finishes probably closer to 20 to 25 assists. I think he's more in the 45-point range. But if he stays healthy enough, he's certainly got enough talent to go out there and score 20 goals. And if he's able to play, 70, 75 games, we could even see him push 30 goals. He's definitely got the talent for it. He just needs to stay healthy, and he needs to find good chemistry with whoever his line mates are throughout the season. So, Steve, what is your take on Nolan Patrick? Is this the make or break season for him?
I think you just had a spewing hot take, because Nolan Patrick's played 73 and 72 games his 2 years, and he's maxed out 13 goals and had 17 or 18 assists both years. So he's doing 72-ish games and getting 30-ish points. It's just a matter of him getting more ice time, which Kevin Hayes seems like he's going to be pushing him down there. I think you could see him, like this year, depending on how many games he plays, it's 15 goals, maybe 25 assists for 40 points. I'm just now bearing down on realism with Nolan Patrick. That doesn't mean he's a bust or this is his breakout year. I still think he needs time, and he deserves that with his injuries. He just needs more playing time and to be healthy, and then he can be what we drafted him to be.
Let's hope, man, because the first 2 years weren't so promising. Nolan Patrick, now that you brought it up, I actually do have him pegged as my breakout player of the year, pending his health.
Yeah.
Shane, what is your take on the situation here?
I don't think it's a make or break it year for the career of Nolan Patrick, but I do think it's a make or break it year for the Flyers tenure of Nolan Patrick. I feel like he's a player who we've read reports and heard rumors that he's not necessarily the most coachable and a little bit of a prima donna in there. Obviously the injury history, and AV seems to be a no bullshit guy. We heard him basically call out TK for not being in camp because the organization and TK's camp couldn't nail down a contract and get him there, and he was disappointed in that. And I think that the longer that Patrick's stuff lingers and his failure to produce in the time and minutes that he does get when he does come back, I think he could be a player that falls very out of grace very, very quickly with AV. And I feel like that's my only real concern with Vigneault as a coach here in Philadelphia, because I do think Patrick's going to have a really nice career, and I think that the further he gets from distancing, or the more he distances himself from some of those head hits, and he starts feeling a little bit better, he's going to be a really nice player. I don't know that he's ever going to be, a point per game player, but I think he could be a top 6 forward at least. So I just don't know that it's going to be in Philadelphia. So for me, this is going to be how he responds when he does come back and is healthy. I don't necessarily know that it's going to be from a point production solely, but I think it's how much he buys into Vigneault in the system.
Can I jump in?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Steve.
I'm going to kind of carry off what everybody said, but given Patrick's healthy, put him on the line with Lindblom and Konechny, and I think you get the 50-ish points. The 50-ish points that Rob and Joe were saying.
Line 2A.
Yeah.
I would
What
take
about
that
Fairby?
line so
What do you
much.
think about if Fairby makes the team? A lot of people think he would slot in on the third line. So then when MP comes back, it would be Fairby, NP, and then Lindblom, if that was the case.
You just bump up to the top 6-ish, 2B.
Yeah, that's it.
Farabee,
Arr.
Farabee, Hayes, and JVR. And then you put
Love
Voracek
it.
with G and Coots.
Love
Yeah,
it.
that would work.
See, the thing with me about Nolan Patrick, though, is he's been coached by Dave Haxtell his whole entire career. So I think that,
I already agree with what you're saying.
yeah. See, exactly. He was coached by a guy who's literally no good for any NHL player. So this is his first time. This will be his first year actually being coached by a legit NHL coach. And I think AV is the kind of guy who can get through to him and say, hey, knock this shit off, go out there and avoid the big hits, go score goals, and don't be a bitch in the locker room.
Yeah, Konechny will protect you. Don't worry.
It's true.
Oh, man. All right, so speaking of Nolan Patrick and his injury, that kind of leaves a roster situation for the Flyers to open the season. We're going to go into our armchair GM intersegment bit here, and one of the moves that the Flyers made, which is a little bit questionable, you guys were talking about in the group chat a little bit, is putting NAK Kubel on waivers. And Steve, we'll start with you this time. How would you have handled that situation?
I 1,000% keep Nicholas Kubel on the roster. I never once expose him to waivers because that man, he plays the prototypical fourth line with potential for third line play. All he does is produce at even strength. I think he was second last year in the AHL in even strength points per game, which is absurd. It's good. You keep that type of player. You don't expose him to waivers. I'm really surprised that nobody picked him up. I guess they're working through their whole roster, so I guess this was the time to put him on waivers. But if I'm a team like Edmonton, I'm picking that guy up right away. But Edmonton's a shit organization, so of course they didn't.
Absolutely joke of an organization up there.
But yeah, I would have kept him, would have let him continue fighting, especially with the whole waiver status thing. That freaked me out. Like, just never forget Paul Holmgren, quote-unquote, gauging trade interest on Andreas Noodle. And then he got picked up.
Noodle.
Yeah. That's what scared me once he was put on waivers. Just flashbacks to Paul
Then
Holmgren.
Martell last year, who's on Tampa now.
Yeah.
So,
Thinking Martell too. He didn't do too much, but at the same time, like, Kubel could also just end up being a nothing NHLer, but I have some higher hopes than most.
Shane, we've heard you before. You're a pretty outspoken fan of Knack as well. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have. Also, same as Steve, exposing him to waivers was the heart palpitations we're going through. But then I sat there and I calmed the hell down and I'm like, look, at the end of the day, he is a bottom 6 guy. We have so much forward talent coming up. I'm gonna sit here and just say I'm grateful that he passed through waivers. It does appear that it was probably the safest time to place a player on waivers. So obviously I'm glad he's still here. That bottom 6 versatility there is invaluable to me. The even strength play, as Steve said, invaluable. He can kill penalties and he can jump on the power play if need be. He's just he's a Swiss Army knife. He's going to be a Raffle-esque kind of player for us when Raffle moves on after his inevitable next 2-year, $2 million contract, whatever the hell he signs in 2 years.
I just want to jump in here real quick. Baseball guy Ty Dahlbert's going to be real happy with the baseball boner because Andrew Knapp just hit a 2-run homer.
Yeah, I have that on in the back of my TV, and I was about to faint while doing this, but...
But yeah, I certainly agree with the points made about Mac. I think that they could have handled the situation a little bit better. I do agree with you, Shane, that was the best time to put him on waivers. Granted that he's able to pass through. But yeah, I see him. He's going to get some roster time this year. I don't have any doubt about that. I think he's going to see some time, maybe even on third line, probably the fourth line. He'll be the first name to be mentioned when someone goes down with an injury. So I think that it won't be a matter of playing time for him for the Flyers. Joe, what's your take on the Knack situation?
Well, for me, I agree with everybody. I would not have exposed him to waivers because I even think, like I compared it to Martel, he has more of a ceiling than someone like a Donick Martel who got claimed. So that's why I was afraid when he got put on waivers. And I was also surprised since he's a right-handed shot, you could then put on that third line, which is where most people saw Pitlick going if he stayed healthy. So it would have made the most sense to me to slot him there. But then I think since Pitlick is coming back now and traveling with the team to Europe, they think he might be ready for opening night. So that combined with Tokarski and Bunneman pushing him a little bit, I think that's why he ultimately went on waivers, whether I agree with it or not. But I would have not done it because I would just like having the left-handed guy on one end who can pass it across and then the right-handed guy can tap it right in, opposed to having some guy have to hit it on his backhand. But
yeah, it's certainly very valid points there. One more question in terms of Abe Kubel, and Joe, I'll start with you this time. If the final roster spot came down to Abe Kubel or Carson Twarynski, who's played really well in the preseason, who do you go with?
That's a really tough one because I'm a huge fan of both of those players. Because he has more experience, I would probably go with Abe Kubel just because I've been a huge fan of him. And like I said, I like having the right-handed shot mixed with that. Compared to having Turinsky would have to go on the backhand if he's on the one side of a line. But I think I would say from how well he's played this preseason, Turinsky's definitely earned his spot. And AV even quoted after the one game saying, I think he was the best player on the ice. So I would have, from fanship, went with Knack, but I like Turinsky too, and I think he's earned it from a business standpoint to have this opportunity he has now. And I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up making the team with the injuries we have currently.
All right, Shane, Abe Kubel or Twarynski, who are you going with?
I think just for the versatility, Abe Kubel. But honestly, I really wouldn't give a shit either way.
Steve, what about you?
Abe Kubel purely for waiver status. Twarynski doesn't have to go through waivers. You can call him up whenever.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to make it a clean sweep there, 4 for 4 in favor of Abe Kubel, just because of the experience, and Twarynski would have to go through waivers. So, yeah, I'll go 4 for 4 Abe Kubel.
Yeah, I really like Twarynski, and I think he is going to make this team right now, but that's just how I am. It's just fuck Chris Stewart. I don't think he should be on the team.
No, I don't know how he's still making it.
I think every single person in Philadelphia agrees with you right there.
Yeah, but I also...
That's not true. He fought in one game, and all of a sudden everyone had a fucking hard-on for the guy.
Yep,
I think he fought. Yeah, he has like... Well,
people had a hard-on for Dan Carcillo when he fought, and that hard-on went away pretty quickly.
Are you kidding me?
Carcillo was fine.
Yeah, I think a lot of people loved Carcillo because you would see him on the bench, and they were just like, you fucking asshole. Like, you would just see him mathing that on the bench, and people would just start dying.
Dan Carcillo could play hockey, all right? Dan Carcillo scored that overtime game winner in overtime.
New Jersey. I actually just watched the highlight of that the other day.
Yeah, so did I. Carcillo got to play hockey. The problem with Carcillo is what we traded for him.
And he started scoring against us. We
traded Scotty Upshall and a second-round pick for Dan Carcillo. That's absurd. It's stupid. It's fucking retarded. But
you're talking about what we gave up for him.
Yeah.
I was thinking after we got rid of him, he started beating the shit out of us in the 2014 playoffs.
He did start doing that, yeah.
And rightfully so. But back to Chris Stewart. Chuck Fletcher, literally 15 minutes ago, Dave Isaac tweeted, no plans to sign Chris Stewart yet, said Chuck Fletcher, but he will be on the trip to Europe. So he'll continue on his PTO, but if they need someone, they'll end up signing him to a contract.
Well, paraphrasing what Fletcher said in the thing on NHL Network, he said about how much he loves Stewart as a human being and said from going over to Europe and playing well, he's earned another chance and has really pushed hard for his another chance in the NHL. That was
sure.
So,
sure.
That,
I'll take Chris Stewart on the AHL team. I'll take him on the fans. I don't give a shit.
Put him in Lehigh Valley. Help them win a Calder Cup.
Exactly.
All right, so we've got the NHL season, the regular season, right around the corner. I just want to go through real quick some quick predictions here. Steve, we'll start with you this time. We'll go division by division. Who do you see winning each division in the NHL?
I got the Capitals winning the Metro, the Lightning winning the Atlantic, the Stars winning the Central, and the Sharks winning the Pacific.
All right, Shane, what do you got there?
Caps in the Metro. I think Boston, the Atlantic. I'm going to go Calgary again just because I love Johnny Hockey. Can't get enough. In the Pacific. And the Central. You went with Dallas, Steve? That's funny.
Yes, I did.
I love you for it, but I'm not going to go with Dallas. I'll go with Nashville again.
I have a surprise team in the Central as well.
All right, Joe, let's hear it.
You have fucking Colorado.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, I have. So we'll start with my Central winner then. I have the Avalanche. As my Atlantic winner, I have Tampa Bay. As my Metro, I also went with the Caps. And then as the Pacific, I went with Vegas. So.
Very nice. I am going to agree with you on Vegas in the Pacific. I am going to go with the Predators in the Central. I'll go with the Bruins in the Atlantic, and I'm going to go with the Capitals as well, a clean sweep in the Metropolitan Division. All right, so let's talk about the Flyers and give them a quick little preview here. Joe, we'll start off with you this time. Where do you have the Flyers ending in terms of wins and points? Who do you think the leading goal scorer will be, the leading point getter? And if they make the playoffs, how far do they go?
Okay, well, I have our leading goal scorer being JVR, and I think from my season outlook, I put him at 38 goals. I think he's going to have the best season he's had with Alain Vigneault because he's going to be in front of the net. Yeah, career year because everyone's going to be aggressively getting the puck to the net, and that's exactly where JVR's money hole is, right in front of the net.
As long as he's healthy.
Yeah, that's the big thing, as long as he's healthy, but we could say that about a lot of guys also. Yeah. And then for points, I think it's going to be G. I already talked about how I think he's going to go back from being he had 34. I don't think he'll be back at 34 goals, but he'll be at like around 30, 28 to 30, and be more towards the 100-point threshold rather than in the mid to late 80s. So I would put him as and then G would lead in the assists at that point too.
So you have him around 70 assists for the season.
Around 70, yeah.
Yeah, and that's going to be right up there with the NHL leaders. How far do you have them going in the playoffs if they make it?
I would actually have us, with how well I think everyone's going to mesh together and Patrick fitting in, like Shane said, that's a question mark if he fits in well. I would say to the second round. I think we win a playoff series, bring some excitement to the city, and then we just keep moving forward past this season and building a Stanley Cup championship like Vigneault said.
All right. Shane, what are some of your expectations for the upcoming season?
I see him somewhere around like 88, 90 points. I'd also see us, sneaking one playoff win or one playoff series win, but I don't see us getting much more than that.
Wait,
in terms of what's up?
You see this team getting 90 points and making the playoffs?
I do.
That's like the second wild card seed right there.
Yeah, I mean, look.
The second wild card was 98 last year.
What the fuck are you talking about? I'm pretty sure the second wild card was like 94.
98. Look it up.
Hey, the year that we went to the Cup in 2010, I think we only had like 89 points in the regular season.
It's different standings now.
It is different.
It is
season.
different
I'm just
now,
saying,
yeah.
no, you don't need to have a spectacular regular season all the time to make the playoffs.
Jesus Christ. All right, Steve, you're correct.
I know
Um,
I know I'm right. Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, so I'm going to adjust this. We're going to go I'm going to say 96 points because I'm feeling good now. So 96 points, I'm going to say. Thanks, Steve. I have them winning one playoff round and then losing the second. In terms of points and who's going to lead us this year, I have a strange thing. I think Voracek's going to lead him in points again. I think it'll be. I think he breaks 90 this year. I'd say like 91, 92, so somewhere in that range.
Sorry, your take is just way too spicy for me right now.
Dude, man, I loved his tweet, man. Every time he gets the puck, I promise to do this. I promise to shoot. I fucking love it.
He's hilarious on Twitter.
He is so damn fun. But no, I think that he's a player that's very much so going to benefit from Alain Vigneault and how much, again, accountability that he's going to have there. If he sees Jake being overly passive in positions, where he needs to not be, and that there needs to be some aggression there, he's going to fucking let him know. And then, with he has a tendency to be really sloppy with the puck and take some high risk plays too. He may settle himself down there and find himself to have, cleaner opportunity for assists, or just put the puck on the freaking net, man. Just try to create a second chance opportunity. But I think he's going to be a player that really, really benefits from AV in that system. So I'm going to go with Jake there.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see. He's certainly got the talent to do it. We've seen it shown in flashes. We saw it really more so throughout his time where he's being coached by Laviolette, but he had some breakout. I think he had like an 81-point season a couple of years ago under Hackstall. If like somewhere in the low 80s, high 70s, low 80s, just about a point per game. He's definitely got the talent to do it. He just needs to find some consistency, and he needs to, as you alluded to, shoot the puck a little bit more. So it'll be interesting to see if that happens or not this season. Steve, what are your predictions for the upcoming year?
I got the Flyers at 46 wins and 100 points. They get the first wild card spot. They win precisely one round. Drew leads the team in points with 94. Travis Konecny leads the team in goals with 33. There's my hot take.
TK.
TK, 33 goals. I
would
it.
love to see that.
I like it.
Yep.
I think he's going to do it this year.
The odd thing is I forgot to say my wins, but I had us at 46 too, so that's weird as shit that we both have the same.
I was thinking somewhere around the same ballpark. I was thinking 45 wins and maybe 8 overtime losses, which puts them at 98
No,
points.
I had 8 overtime losses.
Oh, man.
Bullshit.
I swear to God.
So, yeah, I have them 45 wins, 98 points. I think that Drew leads them in points. He's somewhere between 90 to 95 this year. I've got another bold prediction here. I think Couturier leads the team with 40 goals this year.
Wow.
I think he's not going to tally up a whole lot of assists. He's probably going to be in the 30 range for assists, 70 points. But I think he does net 40 goals this year.
He did lead the team in goals last year. So
Last 2 years, I think.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Last year he came on huge in the second. He didn't even have that great of a start, and everybody was bitching, and then he was one of the best players in the second half.
There's 2 players on this team you can't bitch about. It's Sean Couturier and Claude Giroux.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just throwing that out there.
Twitter. That's like we said, Twitter be Twitter.
Yep.
Okay, no, there's three guys because you can't bitch about Carter Hart. Come on now.
Yeah, you got me there.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, I'm with you guys. I see them winning in the first round. I see them taking a bow in the second round. But I could see them putting up a fight, second round going 6 to 7 games. If they play well enough, maybe they pull it out and advance to the conference finals. But I see the second round being the end of the season for them.
Yeah, but that's the thing about this new bullshit playoff format is you don't know how, you do know how it's going to play out, once the playoffs start, but it's sure, they win this game, and it's just a matter of who they're going to play the next, or win this round, and then who they're going to play the next round. So you could have, an easier, road to the cup. It's just, I don't know how it's going to work out.
We've actually seen some teams tank, like we saw, was it 2 years ago, where both New Jersey and I think the Rangers No, it was New Jersey and Columbus lost on the final day of the season while the Flyers won. So that the Flyers would have to play the Penguins in the first round. Meanwhile, I think it was the Capitals who ended up playing the Islanders. So you don't always end up with the best matchups based on where you finish in the standings. I'm not a big fan of this playoff format either.
Yeah, once Seattle comes in, they got to look at this shit.
They really do. They really do. It's something that needs to be changed back to the way that it was, because there was nothing wrong with us just having the 1 through 8. You know, the division winners being the top 3 seeds, and then the following the 4 through 8 after that going in order of points.
Yeah, the NHL just wanted the revenue from people going to fill out their bracket on the NHL.com and seeing all those ads pop up, you know?
Yep. Hey, you can still do that with a regular 1 through 8.
Yep.
I don't know,
Well, the best time to change it, too, is when you're implementing a new team, because then that's
Right.
the best time to talk about it, not when the NHL wants to push back the CBA to whenever the fuck they push it back to. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, because the last time they changed it, I believe, was when the Thrashers moved to Winnipeg, was it not?
Yes.
I think so, yeah, which was not that recently, now that we think
That
about it.
was 2011.
Yeah.
Rest
All
in
right,
peace,
so-
Atlanta Thrashers.
Good old Atlanta Thrashers. I
Yeah,
actually saw
yeah,
somebody
'cause I
wearing
have
a
an old
Thrashers
flyer.
There was
jersey.
a Thrashers jersey at the rookie game we went to, wasn't there?
I don't
That's
remember.
wild.
I think there was.
Also, side note, Sean Couturier just got into a fight.
Good for him.
In
Good
a
for him.
preseason game?
As long as he doesn't get hurt.
Oh, man.
Against or just like some scrub on the other.
Good for him. He's already missing all of his teeth anyway. He doesn't have any more teeth to lose.
Dude,
It's Brendan
Connor
Lemieux.
Bunyan's already missing his 2 front teeth, and the dude's 21. That's Flyers style.
Him and Bunneman. Bunneman's missing all of his teeth as well.
Yeah.
All right,
It's a
so
way to become loved by the fan base, just be missing your 2 front teeth, and it's like, oh, he must play tough style.
pretty much.
I
Bobby
remember.
Clark. All right, so one last thing before we close out here. We recently celebrated the first birthday of the best mascot in all of sports. I'm sorry, Philly Fanatic. You've been unseated. Gritty, his first birthday the other day. Just each of you guys, we'll start with you, Steve. Your favorite Gritty moment so far?
I really don't know. I'll just go with him streaking, I guess.
Oh, man, I think that's probably going to be a unanimous decision here. But, Shane, what do you got?
I don't really give a shit about mascots ever, so I'm just going to go with when he appeared on the whatever talk show he appeared on, took off his mask thing just to have a hideous whatever underneath it. I feel like that's the soul of Philadelphia. If we take off our mask, we're even more fucked up underneath. So I'm going to roll with that.
There you go. What about you, Joe?
Mine would definitely be either the streaking, or I loved when he first came out, when people first fell in love with him, was trolling the Penguins mascot, where he said, like, you better watch yourself tonight, bird, or something like that, on Twitter.
That was pretty funny. That was pretty good. Yeah, he's definitely been pretty good at trolling guys on social media. I love the one video highlight that they showed. I think it was towards the beginning of last season where some kids were skating around on the ice. I think it was before the game or during one of the intermissions or something like that. And he was going out there checking the little kids. It was pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the mites on ice. Yeah, that was the mites on ice, yeah.
It might have been, yeah. I don't remember if it was mites on ice or just kids skating around. But, yeah, he was going out there checking them into the boards and everything. It was pretty funny. So we're about to wrap this thing up here. But before we call this thing off, I just want you guys to give your final thoughts on the Philadelphia Flyers heading into the 2019-2020 NHL season. Joe, we'll start with you.
Well, I think obviously it's refreshing, like we've been talking about, having a new head coach, a new system where it's going to be blunt, it's going to be point blank, and it's not just going to be, oh, well, we didn't play well tonight. After the game, you're going to have people hold accountable, and it's going to make each guy play to the best they can be. Alain Vigneault pulls the best out of guys, and that's the exact coach you want in Philadelphia, which is why I said I think a lot of guys are going to have career years this year, and I think it's going to be one of the most fun years we had since probably that run to the Cup, since we really haven't seen winning a playoff series in what? Hasn't it been a decade? So
it's been since 2012 since the last time we won a playoff series. We beat the Penguins.
So almost a decade at this point. So we're we've been starving for a playoff win, and I think that's definitely going to happen this season under Elaine Vigneault.
All right, Shane, what do you got?
I'm going to go a little different here. I'm going to say that for all your Flyers watching at home, you should probably order Just Food. It's 215-794-FOOD, 215-794-3663. Treat yourself. Take it home. One of our sponsors here. Visit our guy, Asian Rob, over at one of their 2 in-store locations. One is over in New Britain near Rob. It's at Delville Market. It's Delaware Valley College. The other is in Buckingham Green Shopping Center in Bucks County, PA. It's just above Peddler's Village. So visit our guy over there, Asian Rob. It's Just Food, 215-794-FOOD, 215-794-3663. Treat yourself. Take it home.
Beating me to the ad spot. Good work.
That's because I didn't have a fucking final thought. We talked a lot.
We did talk a lot. We've been going on for 45 minutes now or something like that. Steve, what do you got?
Flyers, please trade Robert Hagg to Vancouver for Jake Virtanen. One, so I can be right.
So you can be right about your 3-month ago prediction.
Dude, that was like 9 months ago.
Oh my God.
It was like 6 or 9 months ago that I said Robert Hagg will end up being a Vancouver Canuck. But also, Jake Virtanen is not going to fit in Vancouver. He could probably fit in here as like their 3rd line winger, 4th line winger. It makes sense for both teams. All right, that's all I'm saying.
There you go.
I dig it.
That's a good trade. I dig that too. Yeah.
My final thought is I'm just really excited for Flyers hockey to be back. It was a long offseason, a really quiet offseason. So I'm excited for the regular season to start, and it's going to be kind of cool seeing them play overseas over in Europe for a few games. So that'll wrap it up here for this episode of the Disciples of Ed. Once again, you can follow us on Twitter. You can find the podcast at ANY Podcast. You can find me at radio_Rob. Shane, where can we find you again?
You can find me at Shane_Meade on Twitter.
All right, Steve, what's your Twitter handle?
Schmitty324.
And Joe, where can we find you?
JJ Borek 26.
All right, and Joe, you also recently came out with a few Flyers-related articles that are up on our website now on the blog section. You can find that at www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. You can see Joe's articles there. You can see mine. You can see Shane's. You can see every article that's ever been written by the Always Next Year podcast. They are all very good reads, so definitely go check them out. And on iTunes, please give us a rating. Please give us a review. Greatly appreciated. Also on iTunes and Spotify, please hit that subscribe button. The more subscribers, the better our show is. That'll wrap it up for this episode of the Disciples of Ed here on the Always Next Year podcast. We'll catch you again next week.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still have me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.